So, Marvel, as we all know, has not been doing too good lately. Apparently, there has been a lot of panic over at the headquarters. I have a theory that people seem to think that Kevin Feige doesn't have as much control over Marvel as he truly does. He really is the person who gets the final say on everything, and a lot of people will admit that. I think, again, the saying I've said over and over in these videos is apparently he is known for being able to, even if the plane is just completely all engines are out of order, he will grease the landing and grease the runway just so that way he can stick the landing, and typically that worked. However, obviously recently with the Marvels, they tried that. They tried to push it back a little bit, pull anything that they could out of their ass in order to really try to make the film do well, and they just could not make it work. No matter what they did, no matter how they tried to untangle this extremely messy plot, they could not get it done. They moved back Ant-Man Quantumania and everything else, just so that way they could try to get this film to be the thing that they wanted it to be, and they still couldn't do so. I think the reason that they were trying so heavily to get the Marvels to become a big thing was because of the fact that it sets up Miss Marvel and sets up her connection to Captain Marvel, and how they will then relate to the Avengers and try to come out with the Young Avengers, I'd imagine. At least that's what they seem to be building up towards, considering they've brought in Thor's daughter, and we have seen Heimdall's kid. We've seen various younger people coming in, taking over the role of other people, Hawkeye had his role taken over by Haley Steinfeld's character in the Hawkeye series. And so we see this kind of passing the torch type thing happening. We saw it happening with the main Avengers crew between characters Captain America and the Falcon. We also know that it's kind of going to happen between, say, Iron Man and Spider-Man, even though he's definitely one of the younger people there. Overall, though, it seems like setting up that Young Avengers in order to build up a new crew and also possibly bring back in that younger audience, while being able to then allow the main Marvel continuity and crew to be a little bit more mature and grow with that original audience. I think that would be the smartest way to go about it. However, that's probably not what they're going to do. They're probably going to stick with the same childish shit that they've been doing for a long time, and then they're just going to add more of it through the Young Avengers, especially considering how cringe they did that weird scene where Miss Marvel comes and meets with Haley Steinfeld's character. It all just felt very kids boppy. I don't know, it just wasn't great. But the point of the matter is, this all goes to say that Marvel is in definitely a rough spot, and so people are wondering, is this because of Marvel, or is there some general superhero fatigue? I think that superhero fatigue only makes sense in one kind of respect. Overall, Marvel has created its own genre of superhero movie. When you think of a superhero movie, most people don't think of the Batman or things along those lines, or the Joker, or, obviously that's more of a supervillain movie, but you don't think of more of these grittier stories that have a little bit more depth to them. The only one that you might associate that with is Thanos' storyline himself, because there's a little bit of nuance to him at the end of the day, and a little bit of grittiness to the arc that occurred with him. However, for the most part, when you think of superhero film, you're going to think of the traditional Marvel formula, where somebody comes in, they have a pretty solid piece going in the world, and then for whatever reason a villain wants to fuck that up. They come in, they try to stop everybody from living happy lives, and then the Marvel crew is puts up a struggle. They usually fail at first, and then they come back, and by the end of the film they've cleaned everything up. And so you almost set up this constant cycle of having this mess, cleaning it up, having another mess, cleaning it up, and you do just get kind of repetitive when you have that situation, making it so that your heroes never end up failing, or never have any true depth to them, or just does the same thing over and over again, where they're going to make it to the next film, especially because they have to be in the next Avengers film. It makes it so that all of the stakes are just pulled out of it entirely, and it leaves it to be a boring story at the end of the day. There's so much that you could do with these characters and you could do with superheroes at large, and that's where we see shows like Invincible or The Boys actually do some of those more interesting things. I personally had never seen Invincible before, but me and my brother started watching it recently, and it is a very, very good show. It utilizes traditionally, more Superman-esque type characters, but puts them into this more evil light, and like, hey, what if Superman was sent here to conquer things rather than to just, live peacefully amongst the people and protect them? These types of questions are things that, Marvel I don't really see asking, and especially taking the more gritty tone where you have like him just slaughter the Guardians of the Globe right away. It all just feels so much more in depth and so much more real than anything that Marvel ever did. The Boys, I think, takes it way too far in my opinion. I understand the appeal of it, and I'm not saying it's a bad show. It's just not for me. I can't handle the way over the top gore shit that they do and the really gross and just disturbing aspects of it. To me, it's like watching Sons of Anarchy. I remember my grandmother was watching Sons of Anarchy, and I came in one time and I was like, what are my sweet old grandparents watching? There's a woman getting a gang R-worded like on screen in front of me right now. I don't want to witness this, and that's how I often feel about The Boys. But with Invincible, it kind of hits that perfect middle ground where you have things that are quite disturbing, and you see how bad and disturbing superheroes truly could be, but it doesn't take it way over the top or to an extreme to where it's almost indigestible, so to speak. I think that this goes to show that people are not tired of superhero stories, but tired of the superhero movies as we generally think of them being these, Marvel formula of going through that constant cycle of just the cleaning things up and then you're right back to where you were at the start. The reason that people enjoyed, the whole Marvel aspect was because it also led up to things and had some character depth. Obviously, you didn't get that right away, but one of the best scenes from Marvel, in my opinion, is in Iron Man, where basically Iron Man went through the wormhole in one of the Avengers films. I think it was Ultron, and basically he then has a panic attack after, when he's sitting at this bar, because he is, remembering that, and he's just been traumatized by this really traumatic event that occurred to him. It makes him feel so much more human, so much more real, and it's kind of a little bit of a grittier scene in there, but those types of character scenes really don't happen that much in Marvel anymore. They don't seem to be giving the characters the depth that they used to, and they make them more of just the cookie cutter superheroes that nobody really cares about. On top of that, the reason that there's also a bit more fatigue is maybe you can do that once a year or maybe twice a year at the very, very most. However, now apparently the Infinity Saga, which went from like 2008 all the way through like 2019 or 2020, somewhere around there, I think 2019, had 23 films, I believe, or 23 projects, where in between just that time period, 2019, and now there has been 22 projects. That is such a large, staggering number of projects, and at the end of the day, it goes to show why people are feeling a bit fatigued of Marvel brand specifically. We've still seen that, of course, DC has struggled a lot with particularly like The Flash having just a catastrophic release, but that's because, they gave the keys to DC to just the absolute wrong people, and so they weren't like handling those movies in a very satisfying way either. However, when you do see DC handling those stories in a more satisfying way with the Suicide Squad as an example, you see that they do make money. I think that James Gunn definitely has a better chance than anybody previously does of making DC a thing, but I think that Marvel is only going to be able to come back from this if they're willing to, one, cut down on the number of projects that they're doing, which it seems that they're not willing to do. They want to just keep the same number of projects, but just lessen the budget overall, which is absolutely stupid. And they want to stick to the same old cookie cutter formulaic stories so that way they can think it's safe. However, I think that people will prove to them now that, especially through the Marvels and through potentially the next couple of releases that are more like the Marvels, obviously Deadpool 3 and whatnot will do well, but for movies like this, if the audiences continue to show that they're not looking for this content, then I think that obviously they're going to have to change things up. What do you guys think? Do you think that people are tired of superheroes in general, or do you think they're just tired of the superhero movie genre as we've come to know it today, which is the more formulaic Marvel stuff? Definitely let me know in the comments down below, and definitely let me know if you guys have seen Invincible and if you've enjoyed it. I know it came out a couple years ago and they're in season 2 now, but like I said, me and my brother just started watching recently, and it's definitely a show that I really like just based off of the first couple episodes, and is that type of like animated, more like young adult type comic show that really is something I've always wanted to see. And I like that gritty aspect of it, and the like fact that they're willing to take it to a bloody place and really just do stuff that hasn't quite been done in the medium in that way. So yeah, definitely let me know. And also, if you guys know of any other like superhero comics that are cool in this regard, like I've just been recently looking into the Invincible and Image Comics series. Obviously my brother was very familiar with Spawn. I was not much familiar with Spawn at all, so like going back and reading some of like the wiki about his character and all of the villains in there, it's a pretty interesting story. So if there's any characters from comics like that you can recommend, or any like shows about these types of characters, definitely let us know in the comments down below. Also, if there's anything else that I missed here that you think is important about Marvel currently, let me know in the comments too. Besides that, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That'll pop up during the outro, and the rest of our links are down in the description too. We have gaming sessions for gaming content, movie sessions for trailer content, Smokin sessions for movie news and reviews, CrazyRocky for variety content, and the Try podcast for our podcast channel. Alright guys, see you all in the next one.